Welcome everybody, I'm Dr. Beasley. Now you may or may not have noticed the last time you were on a college campus that students are probably looking a little older than they used to. I'll say a little more mature. Well, that's because they are. A lot of people are waiting before going to college, and it may be for financial reasons. Some are going straight into the workforce. It may be because they're just exploring different opportunities, maybe different interests. Others are going back to school just after deciding to change their career, or maybe they're just taking that gap year, find themselves, refresh, take a break, or just figure out what they want to do. But adult learners are making up a growing population of college students, and their experiences and their needs are a lot different than the traditional college student or those who enter into college directly from high school. And so instructors, teachers, counselors, support providers, education programs all really need to understand the unique differences and challenges of the adult learner to better meet their needs and help them to be successful. So today, I'll be discussing adult learning theory, characteristics of adult learners, some barriers to success, and also some suggestions and strategies for support. Adult learning theory has been defined differently over the years by a number of psychologists and philosophers and educators, people like Pavlov, Piaget, Skinner, Gagne, Malcolm Knowles. Adult learning theory, as we discuss it today, is actually a concept developed by American educator Malcolm Knowles, who initially used the term adult learners in the late 1960s, and then went on to further develop the theory in 1980, which he also called andragogy. And andragogy, or adult learning theory, is the concept of how adults learn, or the art and science of adult learning. And this theory was developed to highlight the differences between the teaching and learning of adults with that of younger learners, because adults have different experiences, different learning needs, and different educational goals than younger learners do. And so it's important to understand those experiences and needs to effectively design instruction and strategies of support to contribute toward their success in obtaining their educational goals. Now, the reason this is a big issue is because according to a report from National Center for Education Statistics, almost 40% of today's college students are considered adult learners, and that number is increasing. If you're following the current growth trend, it's projected that in 2030, 70% of college students at degree-granting institutions will be adult learners. So colleges need to make sure that they understand and are addressing the needs of this population of students. Now, adult learners are sometimes called non-traditional learners, and they're defined as students in a higher education setting from 25 years old and up. Most adult learners are also considered to be from an underrepresented or underserved population. They usually work full-time. They have families. They may be veterans going to college after military service, or either switching careers or looking to advance in their current career. And adult learners are often juggling multiple responsibilities apart from college. Other characteristics of adult learners are addressed by Malcolm Knowles' adult learning theory, which he states there are 5 of what he calls assumptions about the adult learner. Assumption number 1 is their self-concept. It's assumed that as we grow older, we move from being dependent learners to more independent learners. And this means the ways in which we learn change from a direct instructional approach, which is mostly instructor-led or in a classroom setting, to a more self-directed approach where the student really takes the initiative in learning material that's practical to their needs. Assumption number 2 is the adult learner experience. It's also assumed that as we grow and as we mature, we gain a certain amount of life experience that becomes a resource for more learning. We take from those experiences, we build on them, and we learn more from them. So previous experiences adult learners have form a foundation and a knowledge base for more learning. Assumption number 3 is readiness to learn. It's assumed that adults are more ready to learn because there's usually a reason and an awareness to do so. Learning is more purposeful and it contributes to more growth and development, mostly because it's attached to a specific end goal, and adult learners are more ready to gain that knowledge that directly applies to that goal. Assumption number 4 is orientation to learning. It's assumed that as adults, we want to learn skills that are practical, that contribute to real life problems and lead to improved productivity or efficiency. So something realistic and applicable. The desire is that learning is connected to specific rather than general, vague, or abstract information. And assumption number 5 is motivation to learn. Children and youth, they learn as a result of external factors. It's because they have to, whether it's parents or school, the system, whatever that system is, it tells them that they have to learn. But adults are more motivated to learn for internal or intrinsic reasons. As we mature, so does our desire and our motivation to learn. Adults eventually reach a point where they value and appreciate knowledge and learning, and they see a direct benefit in gaining more knowledge. And because of that, they just appreciate learning for learning's sake. Now, in addition to these 5 assumptions of the adult learner, adult learning theory also includes something called principles of andragogy, or characteristics of the adult learner. And these principles or characteristics are also helpful to know when providing instruction and support to the adult learner. Now, the first principle states, adults need to be active participants in their learning. They want to be involved in the process, how instruction is planned, how it's delivered, and how it's executed or put into practice. They need to have a sense of control in the why, the what, when, and how of their learning, which, by the way, is connected to UDL, or the Universal Design for Learning framework. Principle number 2 states, adults learn more and are able to make more sense of their learning when they can connect those past experiences to new concepts. This helps to form those connections in the learning process, drawing on those past experiences and what they previously learned. It adds more context and purpose to new learning. And it also makes content more relatable, which also makes it more motivating to learn that information. Principle number 3 states things that require rote memorization or providing simple or basic facts. It's not the best way to present new information to the adult learner. Having realistic problem-solving experiences also adds context to learning, and it helps the adult learner to use reasoning and process knowledge in a way that makes learning more applicable and more fulfilling. You want to think of things like Bloom's taxonomy. I know some are going to say that that's outdated, it's irrelevant today, it's not used anymore, but there's still something to learn from it, I believe. And adult learners want to engage in those higher order thinking areas, the analyze, the evaluate, and the create domains. They should spend more time in these areas to make learning more meaningful. And the fourth and final principle of andragogy states adults want to know, how can I use this information now? Learning needs to be meaningful, purposeful, clear, and specific, in addition to being applicable. Learning needs to be realistic and directly connected to the lives and or the professional goals of the adult learner. And they need to understand how they can implement it almost immediately. Busy work, things like games, icebreakers, community building activities, they can be helpful to a certain extent if used effectively, but they're really not that important and are often seen as a source of frustration or a time waster for most adult learners. In other words, adult learners want to get to the point. Another extremely important thing to recognize and understand, there are a number of challenges that the adult learner faces as they plan to either start or continue their education. And these challenges are stressors, and they're a serious concern that need to be really thought about and considered when developing and providing instruction, support, accommodations, and meeting the needs of adult learners. First, there's the issue of confidence and stress. The adjustment to beginning college, whether it's a career change or maybe pursuing a personal or professional goal, brings additional stress to the lives of the adult learner. It could be the stress or anxiety of a new commitment, maybe questioning themselves, whether they're ready or not. Will they be successful? Are they too old? Will they be good enough? Regardless, it's a major life change that affects the adult learner a lot differently than a traditional younger learner. There's also the thought of disrupting the family unit. Adult learners often have families and they're juggling multiple responsibilities and personal expectations in addition to all the school expectations they're going to have. This, in addition to taking care of a family unit, is already tough and stressful enough. The time, the dedication, sacrifices required to be successful in school are definitely going to cut into family-related responsibilities and compound the issues faced by the adult learner. Another major concern is wondering if their spouse or their partner are going to feel like they're being outgrown or left behind educationally. I mean, we as instructors and teachers, support providers, don't usually think about this aspect. In the family of the adult learner, this can lead to that perception of, oh, you think you're better than me, or you think you're smarter than me. This can create an unhealthy level of stress and strife in the relationship, which can also affect their ability to be successful in school. There's also balancing busy schedules. Another issue is that time. Time is important for all of us. It's one thing that the adult learner really doesn't have much of to waste. Educators need to understand and try to be a little empathetic within reason to the fact that most adult learners do have full-time jobs. They have family and parenting responsibilities in addition to holding a full-time school schedule. I mean, I'm just being realistic. It's not easy. And oftentimes those work and family-related responsibilities cut into time needed to focus on educational responsibilities. And before you start thinking, it's a choice to go to school. It's a choice to go to college. They need to learn how to deal with it and balance those responsibilities. Part of that is true, but those skills aren't always there. And it's easy to criticize and judge if you're not the one doing the balancing. And sometimes going back to school is the only logical option because long-term benefits tend to outweigh immediate consequences. And there's also the issue of finances. Let's face it, most adult learners need to work for a living. I mean, most of us do, all of us do, right? And for the adult learner, they often rely on student loans to cover educational expenses, but they still have personal and cost of living expenses. Again, so do we all. Their work schedules are not always flexible, and they usually can't afford to take time off. So weighing the benefit and sacrifice of a college education is not an easy decision. So how can instructors and coaches, support providers, and programs address these barriers and challenges? It's not easy. However, there are some things that can be done to consider the unique learning needs of adult learners while still holding them accountable. Start by learning and understanding their backgrounds, their experiences, and the needs of the adult learners. Understand that their challenges are not unfounded excuses. And once you realize this, you can begin to develop strategies to encourage and motivate and support all the adult learners and help them to achieve their educational goals. You can also provide easy access to resources and information. This is another way, a simple way to help the adult learner. They want quick access to information that might answer questions or help them move forward with what they're trying to do quickly. So providing 24/7 access to information and resources is definitely helpful and something that can be easily offered. You can also extend a little bit of flexibility when possible. A huge concern for adult learners is the lack of consideration for their schedules. I know with full-time jobs and families, rigid requirements can be defeating. In some situations, I know not much can be done programmatically, but there are some things that can be modified to extend a little help, providing things like flexible schedules, various office hours, video lectures, online or hybrid course options, increased assignment deadlines, and easy to access content. These are all helpful to the adult learner. Sometimes it may take changing some of the outdated policies that don't consider the needs of the adult learners to be effective. Another big one is offering some type of financial literacy. Attending college is a major decision for anybody because of the cost. And this is especially true for the adult learner with the cost of maintaining a home, kids, transportation, just bills in general. Education is not cheap. So understanding financial literacy is important. Making the investment in their education can land the adult learner into some significant debt. So providing them with some type of financial education can be helpful and beneficial. Things like helping with understanding the financial aid process, maybe different types of loans that are available, setting up payment plans, repayment options, seeking grant opportunities, which, by the way, more and more are becoming available, especially private grants, and helping them to apply for those grants and being able to answer financial related questions. These are all ways to inform adult learners to help them to be financially wise on the expenses related to attending college. I know sometimes it's not enough to simply say, be sure you fill out your FAFSA and talk to someone in financial aid. Now, instructionally, teachers can extend some involvement and independence as necessary for the adult learner. They thrive in an educational setting when they're active participants in that learning process and are allowed to come to conclusions to problems independently. So in developing assignments or learning opportunities, creating specific individual task-oriented activities are good ideas. Other effective instructional strategies can include things like developing problem-based questions that allow the learner to come to a solution on their own, maybe collaborative group activities that require some type of in-depth reflection and discussion. Also, instructors can make content a lot more relevant. Adult learners want to see and know the relevancy of what they're learning. The focus should be on problem solving instead of just developing a general understanding of content. They need to know the answers to things like, how does this information directly relate to my goals? Or how is this training going to help me master a skill set or task? And exactly how does the content that I'm learning or supposed to learn going to help me be more productive or more efficient? You want to help them to see the value in what they're learning and clearly align materials and resources and content to their learning goals. Also, find a way to consider and connect to the previous experience that they have. We know that prior knowledge forms a foundation for more learning, and adult learners typically have an accumulation of life experiences, and they rely on that experience to help make connections to new concepts. Create safe spaces where the adult learner feels free to discuss their own experiences relative to the goals or the skills that they're hoping to obtain. It's creating a positive, non-judgmental classroom environment. Another tip is to offer feedback and opportunities for reflection and to do so frequently. You can make the educational experience for the adult learner more meaningful and effective by offering immediate, clear, and actionable feedback. And this gives them the opportunity to learn from their mistakes in the moment, or by constructively or positively redirecting them at the time the error is made, rather than waiting until the moment has passed and then providing feedback at some later time. Adult learners are usually more appreciative and less sensitive to that corrective feedback than younger learners are. It's a different level of maturity when you can accept feedback as an opportunity for growth and not as a negative criticism of your performance. And then simply inspire and encourage learners. Remember that confidence and stress barrier to learning? Another way you can help address that and help the adult learner overcome that and motivate them is through frequent encouragement. I mean, we all need that, right? And you can encourage and inspire adult learners by sharing stories of others who've been successful. Also, highlighting the completion of tasks or benchmarks serves as this confirmation of accomplishment, which is intrinsically motivating and encouraging. Adult learners are making up a growing population, and the numbers are expected to continually increase. So it's important to not only be aware of the general characteristics of this population of learners, but also understand all the different challenges they face. This helps program and curriculum developers, instructors, supervisors, and all support providers design instruction, services, policies, or other support opportunities to meet the needs of the adult learner population and help them to be successful in reaching their goals.